Okay, hello everybody. Apologies for the lack of video for this video. As funny as that sounds, the lack of my face, shall I say. It's I've been a bit under the weather, so I'm not looking my absolute best, and I don't want to, just to fit in with my sort of schedule just now. I don't want to show my face. I will get back to showing the face, not tomorrow, but when I come back after my 2-week break from placement, I will be sure to make them that again, if that makes sense to you. I thought instead I would just show you this. Here, this area of the screen. This is a kind of example of what you'll find in my folder for these day reflections, shall we say. It's also followed by, down here, we have a full written copy of the reflection. So, let's just run this, I suppose. Arrived, as normal, circle time register, and today I made quite a little bit more in-depth sort of observation. I wrote down as much as I could possibly about what was said during circle time, just to sort of, just see what the children were talking about. A lot of it was to do with how they're feeling, so that was the theme of the day. So they were saying happy or sad. It was really the only two options that they really went with. Sorry. Sometimes they said other words like excited and things like that. But nothing too severe. Child F said that she was sad because it was cold. So they're starting to get the sort of correlation between what kind of weather makes them happy and other things like that. That's really good. Child L3 was happy because she was going to her grandmother's after school. So they're learning that certain environments are making them happy and sad, and why this is. Child L original, who I've been studying for quite a while, have a sort of file on as it was just now. He continued to tell more stories that were completely unrelated. So this is becoming a sort of recurring theme. After speaking to some of the practitioners about what they think the issues may be with Child L and why he's so sort of egocentric and things, I think it has something to do with the sort of speculation is that I think he's an only child as it was just now. And he's getting a lot of attention at home, so in order to try and get that kind of attention in nursery, he's trying to tell lots of different stories, which it shouldn't be discouraged in any way, but they kind of think that might be a contributing factor. Child L2, I know there's so many child Ls. Child L2 was showing a huge behavioural improvement. Now on Monday we had a lot of problems with Child L2 sort of acting out in nursery, but I can safely say that from Monday onwards that the child had showed a major improvement in behaviour. Even from just speaking to her myself, that was interesting to see. I believe that the parents were contacted to discuss Child L2's behaviour, so I don't know. Obviously I don't know the details of the meeting that took place, and if I did I would not divulge those anyway, because those are highly personal, of course. But from what I've been led to believe, discussion was had, and since then Child L2's behaviour has just skyrocketed, and it's just so much better now. I prepared resources for group time after this, so that kind of just happened. It was my turn to take one of the groups today, so I did so, and that was fine. During the staff meeting was yesterday. I wrote down here that they were recruiting new staff for leaving members. Yeah, that's a thing. There's quite a few phone calls that are coming through just now of people who have read the job advertisement because they're hiring new staff for ones that have gone on to new ventures. So that's an interesting change that the nursery is going through as well. There's a lot of change happening in the nursery right now. I think I've came in at just the right time to sort of see how this is all being dealt with. So that's really interesting. During free play I continued to, after I'd prepared my resources, I went and played Lego with Child M. Now Child M is a child who's formed quite an attachment with myself, and she does so with lots of members of staff. She's a child who's really in need of affection. I believe that she is either newly 3 or just turning 3. She's still very young, but she has she likes to have a lot of attention, but not in a bad way sort of thing. It's an affectionate type way. She's very close with her parents at home, I'm led to believe, and sometimes she gets a little bit upset when when her parents leave during the day. So that's something that she's obviously dealing with herself. I think she maybe looks to the staff and myself for, you know, solace in the fact that their parents aren't there, but that they're coming back, sort of thing. During group time, I was able to take my music activity, which went really well. So basically what I did was I took the musical instruments as per the, I wouldn't say the request of the children, but to meet the needs of the interests of the children, I brought out the instruments. So that was really interesting. Kind of just reading down here, let's see. Okay, it was the orange group I took. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, I'm losing myself in my own notes. This went really well. So what I did was I got all the musical instruments and I hid them around the quiet room. I then printed off a sheet I took a picture of each instrument, I printed off the sheet and then I stuck it up on the wall and I says, these instruments are hidden around the room, can you find them, sort of thing. But before I did that I said, what's this instrument? They said, it's a guitar, one of the children said, and I was like, that's brilliant. So that was instantly recognisable. I showed them a sort of keyboard type device. They said, that's a piano, and I was like, brilliant. You know, this is a very young group. The orange group are the 2-year-olds who are sort of in between 2 and 3 sort of area, but some of them are younger, so it's a kind of a split to the youngest group. They were really good at identifying these instruments, and obviously there was ones that they didn't know, and I was able to fill in the blanks for them. So I said, what's this? And she said, it's a shaker, which was just one of those, you know, plastic eggs with beads in them. So I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, that's what I would call that, a shaker. I was fine with that. And then we had another one that was the tambourine, and they said, that's a shaker as well. I was like, you're right, you do shake it, but do you know what it's called? No one knew. I said, it's a tambourine. So I got them to repeat the word tambourine a few times. By the end of it, they were able to say it kind of, a lot of it was just barine. You know, they were completely skipping over the tamba part. So I think progress was made, definitely, but it was interesting to see how the children weren't really able to repeat as well just directly what I was saying. They had to, you know, kind of put their own spin on it, which was absolutely fine. I feel like there was a lot of good learning that was had there, and once they all got the instruments, of course, they were able to actively engage with those instruments and, you know, play with them, see what noises they make, see what sounds they make. There was really relatively very few problems with this lesson as a whole. Nursery children tend to be fairly unpredictable, that's something that I found myself, but the children in this lesson, as opposed to the sort of Lego activity, which kind of went a bit pear-shaped, they seemed a lot more engaged throughout. There was less arguments over who had what. The children just seemed to really eat it up, and there was learning definitely taking place. They were learning the words for the new instruments, but at the same time they were learning the sounds that they made. They were learning what different ones made different sounds. They were coming and asking me, how do I play this sort of thing with the guitar, and I showed them how to hold it, and I showed them that you have to hit the strings down the way. Again, it was really good. It was perhaps, I would argue, it was my most successful activity that I've carried out at the nursery so far. Okie dokie. Lunch happened, then story and quiet time. Again, during the lunch period and the story and quiet time, I tend to just engage with the children as much as I can, you know, just have conversations with them, just basically be a member of staff, you know. That is what I am there to assist the staff members any way I can when I'm not actively carrying out activities or the like. So it was really good to kind of get a chance to do that. I noticed that there was a really good review technique. Sorry, I'm choking over my own words here. Let me just grab some water. That's better. Some of the children there was a review technique used by one of the practitioners. So she read them 3 books, I believe. And once the 3 books were finished, she said, put your hand up if you thought this book was really good. Put your hands up if you think this book was quite good but not that great. Put your hands up if you thought this book was okay, if it wasn't very good, or if it was the worst thing, like smelly socks. So, you know, she made it child-friendly language. But I thought it was absolutely brilliant. The children, she was being able to gauge the children's level of engagement with the books that she had, and she also got to gauge their interest, because obviously the ones that were really, really bad, she could then weed out and maybe use them less often. The ones that were like an overwhelming majority that they enjoyed, they can use it more often. Really good, actually. I was fairly impressed by the way that was carried out. And free play happened, but we couldn't get outside because of the weather. That's a contributing factor. We weren't able to go outside for a normal outside period of time, so that was a bit of a shame. But again, no great loss. The children weren't as roof-hitty as usual, because sometimes, I've noticed, especially in the primary school, if they have to stay in for one of their outside break times, they can start getting a little bit antsy and quite hyper. Not the case, funnily enough, in the nursery, for this occasion anyway. Helped out the orange group at group time, not a lot to really discuss there. I engaged again with free play at the end of the day, and I spent a little bit of time planning tomorrow's activity, because as per my agreement, until they find a new member of staff, I can use the green groups as a group for myself to take and prepare activities for. So that was really good and really, really exciting, actually. It's given me a lot more to sort of focus on, to sort of hone in on, and be able to engage with a new group of children. I haven't actually given any lessons or activities to the green group at this point in time. So that was really all that day had to offer. We'll move on to day 15, which was my last day of the first 3-week block. So pretty exciting times, really. Day 15 I will actually open up here, if I can get a little bit of that open. Get rid of day 14. Oh no, I need to change it here. Let me see, day 15, refresh. Day 15, okay. Nope. That's not what I want. Oh, technology is fantastic when it works. There we go. Okie dokie. So day 15 was an emotional day for the staff as well as the children. One member of staff is leaving today to go on to a new job, so that was really good. But also it was Child L3's birthday, so he was really excited about that. It's I know who Child L3 is now. It's his birthday, and he was really fairly excited about this. So the regulars happened: Arrive, Circle, Reggie, Hello Song. It was the staff member's last day, but that's fine, I've written that down. We had a discussion about a junior journalist. Now this is something that they wanted to implement in the nursery after seeing it pilot in primary schools. Wherein for the school newsletter, one of the practitioners will interview a child and then get their scope on what's been happening during the week, put it down in their words, write it on the newsletter so that parents can see directly what their children have been saying about the activities carried out, because a lot of things do get lost in translation between school and home, is believed. So that would be really engaging, and it would be really interesting to see what the parents think of that. Day in the weather happened, free play. I prepared my resources for my morning activity. Now, my morning activity today was actually quite interesting. Now, the way that it actually turned out was a little bit different than what I would have expected, but it did what it needed to do. We'll say that much. What happened was, it was kind of along the same lines as the sheep activity that I did earlier in the week with the green group, and that it involved the paint and... Sorry, just give me 1 second here. I need to find my notes on the lesson. Not doing the best here. Many apologies. The children did all seem to enjoy the activity in the end of things, I do believe. So it was quite good in that regard. Here we go. So it was to kind of keep into the theme of growing and planting. The children had shown a real interest in the growing of flowers, etc. So I decided to kind of act upon this for my group activity with the green group. What I did was, I decided to do finger paints for flowers. Now, by doing this, I was able to give the children a sheet, like so. I will actually put the camera on for a second, if it will let me. Yep, there we go. Don't want to show my hideous face at the moment. This is the sheet that I gave the children. It has 3 stems on it. I made sure that they knew what the stems were, what they mean. You know, the plants would go at the top of them. So I asked them what was missing. They were saying it's the flowers that are missing. So I was like, what do you think I'm going to ask you to do? They said, well, put the flowers on. I was like, of course, brilliant. So they were able to identify what was going to happen with the activity. So I gave them paints. Now, in kind of learning from my past experience, I decided to put out less paint than I did the last time. And instead of putting green out, I just put the 3 primary colours out, and I let them know that they can mix colours to make different colours. I says, why do you think Ewan's only put out 3 different colours? They didn't know. I was like, what happens if you put one colour into another colour? And they say, oh, it'll mix and it'll make a different colour. So I was like, well, why don't you try and see what different colours you can make? So that actually worked pretty well, for the most part. They were mixing their colours, and they were, you know, painting their flowers, and they were showing. I gave them an example. I showed them how to do it. I showed them what I didn't want. I made it explicitly clear to them. I says, what do you think I don't want to see? A lot of them didn't really get on board with that. This is quite a young group as well. But I says, do you think that Ewan wants you to completely cover your paper in paint and then not see the flower stems? He said, no, that's not what you want. I was like, yes, that's correct. I said, do you think Ewan wants you to paint all over your arms and all over your face and get really, really messy? They said no and laughed. And, you know, I just kind of tried to make it a bit less, this is what I'm telling you to do. And I kind of picked that up from another practitioner who uses this same technique of kind of asking them what I don't want them to do and making it funny to the point where they feel comfortable in my company, and then hopefully that there'll be a respect there in which they don't do that. So the activity took off, and it was absolutely fine for the most part. And the sorry, let me just quickly. Okay, this is for earlier things. So during this activity, the children were really engaging fairly well with it. They were mixing the paints, and everything just seemed to be going pretty swimmingly until I sort of turned around. This it was a lot more interesting and relevant to their needs. They were enjoying it. Some of the children produced some actually quite nice final products that could be cut out and then put on the wall if need be at the time. However, when my back was turned, I turned back and I noticed that some of them had just completely, 2 children in particular actually, just completely covered their page in paint. Now I explained to them, I said, do you think that's what Ewan wanted you to do? And they said no. I was like, I made that really clear from the beginning, you shouldn't have done that, I'm not very happy. They seemed quite remorseful, so I got them another piece of paper with the stem on it and I let them do it again. But again, they kind of seemed to, they didn't completely cover it in paint this time, but they did to an extent, you know. They kind of didn't keep within the sort of boundaries of what I had set out. So I really don't know how to feel about that. The other children did well. The other children were really kind of engaged, and they ended up with some really nice final products, and that was fine. But I don't know if maybe my expectations were too high. Now that's something that I'd need to speak to the practitioners about when I go back on placement after this 2-week break. And I will be sure to mention that with them. Are my expectations perhaps too high? Should I really expect the final products to be looking something nice, or should I be happy that they actually engaged with the activity and made something of it? They've been creative, you know. I've taken a step back and let them explore their creative nature. Or should I be reining it in to an extent? If I just read here what I said, what the next steps for me were, I says, I think that in the future I should try to provide a secondary task for the children as opposed to trying to extend the current one. It appears that the latter does not work effectively, whereas having a backup may prove more effective. So, I mean, that's interesting. Sorry, just 1 second. I don't know if I'm looking at the correct... yes, never mind, I'm looking at the wrong sheet there. Oh, I'm so disorganised, I apologise. But yeah, the next steps for me are I want to find out about if I'm maybe having my expectations too high for the group that I'm dealing with, or if need be, should I be enforcing the sort of rules and laws a little bit more, but we'll see how that pans out as time goes on. So during free play, we'll go back to this now. I observed / played along with the children. That's something that I've been doing a lot of recently. Just when it's free play, getting down with the children, finding an activity that they're all interested in, sitting with them, playing with the resource, so I can learn a little bit more about it, but also being able to get onto their level, show them that my interests are similar to theirs, and engaging with them personally so that I can hear what they have to say, hear what their thoughts are. So in the art area, child A2 was mixing paint colours. I thought that was really interesting to see, kind of following on from the activity that I had did with her earlier in the week. So she was very happy to she was very happy to carry on what I had not taught her, I will say, but I'd done with her, and she seemed to enjoy that so much that she was wanting to do it during her free time. So that's good. That's encouraging to see that I'm generating a form of interest with the children with that regard. And also child K plays on the computer with the computer area a bit too much, and she tends to try and dominate the area. She's one of the children who's set to go to school later on in the year, and seems to be a little bit, I don't want to sound presumptuous, but she seems like she's almost past nursery, as it were. She's kind of done with it, it can't really take her any further. She's ready to be in the schooling environment where she can be free to actively learn and have those rules and boundaries in place. So that's interesting to note, I would say. But she does tend to try and dominate that area, which for the most part is not good. She's been told not to do it, and I think she has kind of lent off it a little bit, but you can still always sort of notice it happening every now and again. But I believe just keeping on reinforcing that can't be allowed, sort of thing, then hopefully she will come to terms with that, and then that will be the end of that problem. Child A2. Child A. Child A's language has improved dramatically. This is something I know. Child A is one of the two children who I have mentioned previously who have sorry, I'm really just completely losing my mind today. Who speaks English as a second language. She's, I believe, Spanish, this child. And she has, even from my entrance to nursery to my time here, to now, so this 3-week period, her language has come on so much, so incredibly much, that it astounds me that she's able to do so. She used to, when I first arrived in nursery this 3-week period ago, she barely spoke a word of English. She would hardly speak to anyone other than just saying no and yes, and occasionally like her own name and pointing to things, and that was the way that she communicated. But she was obviously getting a lot of this is the only way I can describe it. I know I'm baseless conjecture perhaps, but she seems to be getting an awful lot of help from home, from her parents, and that's fantastic. And she can hold full conversations with me now. I've spoken to her before, and then she points at things. I mean, her language isn't perfect. I'm not going to go on and say it's like a Hollywood scripted movie here. It's not like she's had this complete moment of clarity, but just to see the vast improvement is incredible. She still struggles occasionally with certain words, but she does speak really well. And she can also speak in her own language, and that's encouraged by the practitioner as well, something that I noticed. I think the child was eating a banana for her lunch, and then she would say banana, and then the practitioner would say, okay, now in Spanish, and then she would say it in Spanish, and then she'd say, okay, now in English, and then now in Spanish, and just making it a game, a game to transition between the languages. Now, in the contrast to that, child S, I believe, was the other child that I was looking at, who speaks English as a second language, is still very shy and very sort of introverted, and she doesn't seem to speak a lot anyway. So, in terms of engaging how well her English is coming along, I can't make much of a judgment on that at all, because she physically doesn't really tend to speak, let alone to me, who's a new sort of member of staff who she's not used to seeing all the time. So I can only keep an eye out, sorry, for child S, but child A has shown such a vast improvement that it impressed me greatly. I was so surprised of just how well she came on, and after speaking to the practitioners about it, they agreed. They said, well, when she first came to nursery, she barely spoke a word of English, and then within the period of a month, which is apparently only how long she's been here, she's not really been in the country that long. She says she only really arrived slightly before you did, and her language has come on leaps and bounds, but she gets a lot of that from home. And then when I discussed child S with the practitioner, saying I noticed that hers hasn't really, and she was like, then they kind of agreed and said, well, a lot of that is down to the child being shy. No two cases are ever the same. It doesn't necessarily mean that our language hasn't improved. We just can't really see what's happening because like she doesn't speak as much as child A does. So that was interesting to see how sort of different it can be for two cases who have basically started with exactly the same deficit, should we say. Group time, green group, I've already discussed that. Story and quiet time, then we played outside for a while. Being 100% honest, the rest of the day was kind of just fun with the children because it was one child's birthday and it was also the practitioner's leaving day, so not a lot of, I wouldn't say not a lot of learning, because learning is constantly happening. It's a learning rich environment, but not a lot of noteworthy events on my part, should we say, really occurred, as it were. A lot of it was just playing with the children and also just having fun at this party and saying goodbye to the practitioner, and then that was it, really. I made sure that the staff were aware before I left that for the first week of the 2 week Easter break that I would be in Dundee, and that if need be I can come in at any time if they're feeling like they could use the extra pair of hands at any time. They haven't contacted me so far, so that's fine. And with a bit of I kind of hope that they do contact me at some point, and then that's not up to them. I could easily drop in at any time. That's not the case, but if they do need me, I hope that they wouldn't hesitate to ask. I made that very clear that I'd be more than happy to do so. But for the second week of the holiday, I will be travelling home because it's my mother's birthday, and there's a lot of other things that are going on back home that I need to go and sort of check up on and spend some time with my family who I've not seen since really January. That's one of the things you don't really expect, is to not see your family as much when you're away up at university. So I hope that was informative today. There was a lot of rambling that went on. It's kind of a bit cut and dry, so I apologise for that, but hopefully once we come back to a fresh 3-week period of reflection, there'll hopefully be a little bit more to comment on. I will keep progress of the non-English speaking students, and as well as the inner runnings of the nursery. Everything that I've kind of set out to do is starting to take shape and come together, and I'm really happy with that, as well as the sort of planning of activities becoming more frequent. I'm a lot more comfortable now doing so for the children, and they seem comfortable in my company. So all in all, a successful first half of placement, I believe. So I will see you in the next video, where I will most likely be reflecting on my entire 3-week period to date. See you then.